was a time when craftsmanship wasn't measured by how fast you could get the job done. There was a day when all homes were filled with handcrafted details. Look at the beautiful old homes all around you. They were built without electricity, architects, nail guns, yet these homes are a thing of enduring beauty developed over hundreds of years of refinement. It's from these lessons that we must take our design lead. Not that we should copy the exact details, but we must reinterpret the old classics in the light of our present-day economics, materials, and needs. If we can do this, then in the next century our ancestors will look at our homes in the same way we look at the classic homes of our past.
My ancestors lived in Connecticut at one time, and they wanted to settle in a new area, so they headed towards Hartford, Pennsylvania, and they built some quick log cabins so that they could get their families here and stay in these little log cabins before they built their permanent home. So up around Hartford someplace, there's a stone foundation. Now, of course, the logs are all rotted away and gone, but the stone foundation is still there. There's possibly old wagon wheels up in there. Remember the old wooden, great big old wooden wagon wheels? Now they're antique dealers' pride and joy. I can remember, too, back when I was a kid, we never had heat upstairs in our bedrooms. And, oh, I can remember getting out of bed in the morning, and it was freezing in the wintertime especially, and Mother always had a window open a little bit someplace. Another thing I remember, too, is when we got our first bathroom. And I remember sleeping in that bathtub that night. And I thought I was the queen, you know, because we had a bathtub and a toilet and a sink. But I've got wonderful memories of my youth.
You know, maybe your home isn't really cold in the morning. Maybe your windows aren't frosted up. Possibly the glass doesn't rattle when the wind blows. But still, the home is really a major part of your identity. It's something that establishes who you are. It gives you pride. Our goal is to allow you to understand the design process, enabling you to match your personal identity with your future home. To do this, we've talked to different builders, architects, engineers, and homeowners about their personal experience of the process, about how they identified their priorities, whether they wanted it to look like the old home, whether they wanted it to look like a new structure, whether they wanted it to be modern. Do they like Frank Lloyd Wright? Is there a specific architectural style they're shooting from? Once we can establish that overall priority, I'll call it a concept. That concept will then guide us throughout the entire process. Before me, there are two different projects that illustrate this point very well. In this project, the client wanted the home to look as original as possible. She wanted people who drove by this not to realize that it was an addition. On this other project, we had a client who didn't like the original style of the home and bought the home for the location. In this project, the client came in and had a certain desire of a style of home. That desire, that style, then guided the development of this project. They're both additions. They're both designed to fit the client's needs. To illustrate this point, I've generated a simple graphic. On one hand, we have a modern addition, on the other, a renovation. Every project needs to look at how far do they want to go. For instance, a total renovation would really mean that we have no toilet, no bathroom. A completely modern addition, on the other hand, means that you cannot recognize the original building in the overall structure.
But the garage was my biggest concern. The thing that held me up the most in making a decision and starting the project is that every garage under the loft expanded did look like an addition, a new garage on an old house, and I really kind of hated to do that to this house. And just last weekend, a lady went by the house and said, every time I go by your house, I can't believe I think that addition has always been there. And I know it wasn't, but I have to look at it. I think that was our biggest accomplishment, that we wanted to look like it had always been there.
I wanted it to look like it was original. That was my main goal. I wanted to make sure that it didn't look like an addition, that it looked like the house was actually made that way right from the very beginning, from day one. And I think I've accomplished that much. I wanted some traditional points, but basically I wanted to upgrade the house so that it looked more contemporary. I had some definite ideas as to what I would like to see in it. Once it was on paper, everything was done, I stuck pretty close to the original plans.
Before we get into the actual mechanics of the design process, we'd like to show you two typical homeowners and their personal response to their project.
The house, as it was when we came here in 1975, just got too small for a family of four. It especially showed up on school mornings when there were four folks trying to use one bathroom to get ready to go to two jobs and 2 grades in school. So that was really what started us thinking about what we wanted to do here. That phrase, well, as long as we're doing this, why don't we do that, started to appear. And then that phrase started to lead to things like, well, I always wanted to replace the electrical wiring in the house, because the initial wiring in the house, because it was such an old house, was kind of like a hodgepodge, and I'm not too sure how safe it was. It was an old drafty house, and we wanted to seal up the windows, so we thought, well, we'll replace the windows. The roof was 20 years old. And a lot of factors like that. And another major point here, I think that in this situation, the contractor and myself have been close personal friends for years. And no matter how strong a friendship, any kind of an arrangement like this, where you're paying someone to do work on your home, can certainly threaten a friendship. Well, in this particular situation, we realized that early on, and the design process helped us to avoid that kind of a problem, because I think Holly and I fully knew before we started the work, during the work, and certainly at the end of the work, what we would wind up with. There was never any question of us being in a position to say to Denny or to say to you, but you never told us that would look like this. I mean, all the way through the whole process, we felt very comfortable and very secure what we'd wind up with. I mean, there were details that were a pain like anything else, like financing, you know, and making sure that the financing was scheduled appropriately and stuff like that. I mean, that's just administrative details, but I think that was the toughest part of the whole process for me, was to see the house that, you know, we had grown to love after 12 years of living here. Half of it's gone. You know, it was just, and it looked deserted here. I mean, that was pretty devastating. When you have people say, looks like it's always been there,
Yeah.
you know you did the right job.
Yeah.
And we've had people say
Yeah.
that. When we've told them, when we've showed them the photographs of what the place is like in '87, they find it hard to believe.
What are we going to do? Are we going to make the house what we wanted? The interest rates were down, we were ready, our house was paid off. Are we going to stay here, or are we going to move?
But I mean, where are you gonna move to? I mean, you know, you're never gonna find the perfect house, never. No matter what
No.
you buy, you're gonna have to do something
That's
to it. You
true.
know?
That's a good point.
So we figured, we know what we have here, we might as well put the money into this place already, you know, because we like it here. I mean, it's a nice, it's private, you know.
Right, we like the area, we
Right.
like the yard, and like Ted said, it's never what you want. Unless you build it yourself,
And even
it's
still,
someone else's wants in there, and desires and dreams, not yours. We had thought about this project, Ted and I, for 10 years. So there were a lot of things that we knew we wanted.
We wanted a bigger kitchen, a newer kitchen. Our kitchen was old, it was time to replace it. We wanted the powder room, and we definitely wanted a family room off the kitchen.
So really, the concept, the initial thought, let's raise the roof, let's take the master bedroom upstairs, and then when the roof is up, let's let that drop down over the new family room.
Right.
Really, that concept
Came out of the first meeting.
came right from the very, I bet within the first hour,
I bet so too.
that was hatched.
Yeah. So, like, it seemed like we were on the same wavelength, though, because you, I think, walked in and thought, "Oh, I'd like to see this would look nice here." I think, and we happened to, luckily, I guess, we all have the same thought process
Right.
going.
Yeah.
You know, it was definitely our ideas. You might have said, "Well, did you ever think about this or think about that?" And then we would think about it and meet again. But we told you what we wanted.
The space in between every meeting made us think about it even more, like both of us. like, in your
Because,
kitchen,
yeah.
of course,
Right.
you know.
Then did you feel like the 3 months or the time period that it took was a logical time?
Oh, yeah.
really.
Because I think that you're not going to do this again. You better be sure about what
Do it
you...
right the first
Right.
time.
What
I mean,
you
don't cut
want.
any corners. You know.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a quick process. It's not a fast... It shouldn't be.
At the end of 3 months, we had plans in our hand, and we were ready to go.
What did we do first? Contractor?
Contractors. And that was
then-
months. I have to say,
And
it
then
is
the-
not a quick process. It's not. It's, I mean, it's up to you. We got something like 8 or 9 bids. The lowest was 50,000. The highest was
87.
87.
So,
For the, now, consider, we had plans. We did not end up going with the cheapest price. We based our decision on personality, his rapport with us, how we felt he, how important he thought this job was to him. He made us feel like it was his house too. And also, he was here every day. We
Whereas,
wanted someone who was going to be here every day.
instead of traveling around from
Instead of
job to
traveling
job.
from
That
job
was
to
the
job.
main thing.
And he expressed great pride in his work, and I think that's important. When we first started the project, and we were talking about it, one of our friends came over, and he commented that, "You're crazy, why are you putting all that money into an old house?" So now, the same friend came back,
And he said,
"This is beautiful. You guys are, it's just, you know, yeah."
don't let my
he's-
wife see it.
We're happy with it. We are. It's meeting our needs even now. Tonight we're having our family for dinner, even though it's not done, and we're all going to be able to sit in the same room.
Which was impossible before,
Right.
so.
So we're happy with it already.
At one point in time, I had the pleasure, I guess, of working with a senior architect in Boston while I was going to school. Basically, what he did was he sat down and he outlined for me all the steps that a designer would go through from the beginning of the process all the way through the end. And it wasn't until he sat down with me that I really understood that there was a method to all this madness. And basically, what he started off with was, the steps are very simple. Number one, there is a problem that needs to be defined. Unless you know what that problem is, you can't very well come up with solutions or alternatives to be able to solve it. He might have specific needs, and those feelings you need to draw out. You need to put those things on paper beyond just a room that's 10 foot by 10 foot. Now, once you develop a specific program, then you know the size, basically, of what you have. Now you have other elements that shapes at least an architect's motives anyway, and that's number one, you need to understand the site. What's the parameters of the site? What's the neighborhood like? How do we treat the natural elements that God gave us, such as the sun and the wind and the other elements, rain? How do we handle all of those elements? So basically, the first step of it then defines the specific problem. Then you can take the specific program and all those very definite elements that you have done in your analysis and begin to come up with conceptual ideas. What you use to answer whether or not a concept works or doesn't work is really not something that you feel you like or don't like. It's what best satisfies what your client's needs are. So it's important that you really be part lawyer or part investigator up front to really draw out all those specifics. And then, and only then, would you be able to develop schematics or design, conceptual design solutions that could use the criteria you formulated very early on as advantage and disadvantage points. At that point, when you get back to your client then would understand the very logical approach of, one, understanding what his needs are, and basically we need to listen. That's one of the hardest things that any designer has got to learn. They has to listen. So once you listen, then you're going to understand what the client's needs are, and he's going to know it the minute you bring that design back, because you're bringing back his ideas, his thoughts, melded with your knowledge. Beyond the concept, then, you move into the next stage of work, and that's design development. Now what that does is design development takes all the conceptual ideas that you had and now puts them into very specific dimensions. All too many times, that's the point in time where a designer's expectations far exceed the client's ability to pay for what you want done. So at that point in time, I think you need to be real careful during the design development stage to make sure that the costs are close. And at that point, you may redesign some things and you refine it until you get into the construction document phase, which is actual nuts and bolts. That's when all of the pieces of the package, both drawn and written in terms of specifications, are done. And that package is now let out to a series of contractors to bid. It's at that point in time you're going to tell whether what you heard in the beginning, what you solved, works. Because when the final number comes in, that's the true test. The true test of a designer is the ability to create something special within a client's budget and his needs. If you can do both of those and have a building that relates both externally and internally, and then have a contractor build it without saying, boy, what you detailed won't fly, then you're going to get a product that is going to work from the minute you envisioned it until the day you walked in it. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more gratifying to me. I think that's what the design process is all about.
To the attic. That's how it started. We needed to get into the attic, which is now a crawl space, to get up to the attic. And that's kind of the joke around here. All we wanted to do was get to the attic, and look what we're doing. That's right. And what we wanted was another living room, or a family room. And starting in the front of the house, I always wanted a front porch, an area with a desk and cupboards, kind of a small office space. And we needed another bedroom. So that's how it started. They were the initial concerns we had.
For me, I think one of the biggest things was to have an easy access point out to the backyard. Having two small children who might be out in the backyard playing, I wanted a means of being able to see them and make sure that they were safe, and I could easily get to them if in fact they did need me.
I actually had two additional thoughts, one of which was obviously cost. We had a restriction with cost, obviously. We had to do it within those limitations. The other was we were not going to do the project if we couldn't do it and have a tie-in to the aesthetics of the home. We didn't want a contemporary deck. We felt that that would be obtrusive. It would obviously stick out. But we were willing to do the project if we could tie it in with the house, and that's obviously why we felt we needed professional help.
I just wanted more space, mostly. I wanted a lot of glass, and I wanted an entryway, which I didn't have before with the original house.
Well, we were trying to create an all-purpose room because we needed it to function in several different ways. We needed it to be a sleeping area for at least 4 people. And we wanted a bathroom because we have the pond outside and people need to come in and out and use this downstairs all the time. And also for anyone sleeping down here, it was much more convenient. And we needed a place for the pool table and games and a TV because we have all these grandchildren. We needed a place for them to play.
I was very concerned about the fireplace to make sure it was set in the right place. So when I was in the older part of the house and sitting in the living room, I could sit down and actually see the fireplace from the living room.
Everything's based around your finances. You know what the money you got and you know where you got to go. You also have to live after you get it done. You've got educations to pay for, you've got cars to buy, and you also have to maintain the home after you get done. You have to watch your budget very, very close because you can get carried away. You can put too much money into it.
If a designer goes ahead and designs something and then it gets sent out to bid and it's way over budget, then he's back to the drawing board. He has to start over. Whereas if he gets a builder involved from the very beginning, once the designer knows what the customer's budget is, he can influence his design based on the customer's ability to pay and what the customer needs.
Initially, when we presented a design to us, it was all the things we could have ever wanted in a day. And then I, because of our relationship with Denny, said to Denny, okay, Denny, this is our wish list. Now bring us to reality and tell us what I can do, what we can do within our price limitations, and what we were willing to compromise on. Obviously, we did sacrifice the gazebo, which was going to be very expensive. And although initially we were a little disappointed what Denny ended up doing from that point, it was fine. It ended up being something we're very happy with. But when you are hit with reality, you have some decisions to make, and you have to decide what you can live with and what you can't.
Usually send them to an architect or send them to a designer and let them draw it on paper so the customer can see it rather than me go in there and start the job or try to explain to them, because the changes become expensive once you've started them. It's a lot easier for a fellow like you to do it on paper and where they can visualize it.
I like the idea of little alcoves, and which eventually we did not use because of the cost, but it really helped me to focus on what kind of a room I wanted it to be.
The big window in the bedroom, the half circle, was one for sure. The dormer upstairs, the cantilever overhang in the back were all expensive. The French door downstairs, the wood siding as opposed to the vinyl. Yeah.
The custom-made Dutch siding to match the old house.
Yeah.
The house is so attractive because of the windows and the cantilever. The design makes it a beautiful house, where otherwise it would be house.
Yeah, the same thing there, where to me it was ridiculous to spend $600 for a toilet. I readily spent $3,000 for those things that we mentioned without blinking an eye. To me, that was where I wanted to put the money.
Well, a lot of the features have to deal with fixtures or frills that are put onto the home after the actual structure is built. These features can be such as glass, expensive woods, doors, cabinetry, marble, granite, fireplaces, jacuzzis. These are big ticket items that if you figure into the price of the square foot of the home, they drive the cost per square foot up considerably. A customer really has to stay within his budget because these items will bust his budget.
Privacy is a concern of ours, and the lot that we chose is in a cul-de-sac. It's not along one of the main roads. Behind our property is a lake which in addition to having a very nice view, also offers us the kind of privacy that we were looking for. There's quite a bit of separation between the homes. Also, being a natural wooded setting, that was very pleasing to us.
The setting compared to the other, to me, was a big advantage. It's on a much quieter street, still in town. Yeah.
It has a country feel, which I like, and it was at one time country here. Really, it was outside of town.
Just total visibility of the mountains and the sky and the light and the sunset. There was other things. I mean, there was privacy. Not only the view, but the view is beautiful, but there's no one to the right of you, no one to the left of you, no one in front of you and back of you. So it was privacy also.
As a registered surveyor, my job is to help people define where their boundary lines are in relation to their legal description for their deed. I can't imagine anyone wanting to spend between $15,000 and $100,000 for an average residential lot and not knowing exactly where the lot is. This is a typical area for development. This is a 1,100 acre parcel that's been subdivided into different types of areas. We could take one lot here in particular, one single residential lot, and we picked up and located physical features like this area that has a rock outcrop. There were some significant trees that the lot owner would like to retain, if at all possible, if they could be designed around for his home. We also show contour lines which represent the elevations throughout the entire lot, which helps the architect and engineer design grades and slopes and floor elevations. What we also show here are setback lines, which are set back by the local municipality, which tells the homeowner what distance they must keep their home or any structure away from a property line. I'm sure most of you have heard that there are a lot of fines being paid on wetland areas that might have been encroached upon by an owner of a residential lot that was not aware of a wetland on their property. And if there are wetlands delineated on the property, we would locate those and show those on the maps as well as areas that cannot be disturbed by any of the construction operations. This is what the finished product would look like after we get done with the survey map. Again, it shows the entire outline of the property, the roadways, a north arrow, all the features, the utilities, and contours.
Once we get the survey from the surveyor, we take the survey and do what is called a site analysis. That is basically an information gathering process where we would go to the site and note any existing landmarks, topography, the slope of the site, rock outcroppings, any distinct items that are present on the site. This overlay of the site basically just puts all that information down on one sheet. It's the site analysis showing each of those items I just mentioned. This is a rough idea of the shape of the building that we're going to use. The garage in this case is located over here. We have a sloping site which is dropping towards the rear. So we're going to want to, if we could, try to avoid as much fill as possible when we do place this building on the site. This is what you would call a construction drawing for a site plan and building placement. As you can see, it's very specific as far as where the driveway access is, where the location of that is, where it enters the garage. The building placement is specified. The elevation of the building is specified. The drainage around the building is also specified. In this case, the information that was obtained in the design phase is incorporated into this drawing.
Yourself as a residential designer understood where we were coming from. I mean, we were coming from not an unlimited budget here. there were some very fundamental things that we wanted to have done, and you helped us recognize what we wanted to have done and what we didn't have to have done. And once we had that put together, we had our project is what we had. And I mean, it was you listened very well, and your listening turned into this.
Really, your ideas have really almost meshed with things that we have thought about, right? But could not explain to a builder and a contractor because they really didn't really fully understand what we had in mind.
Well, I don't know if they appreciate as a designer would, you know, the view as much, or someone.
And these lines,
who's
and the roof
artistic.
lines, exactly, and getting the most out of the space.
The key role for the designer or architect as they work with the client is to be a translator. Somehow they have to be able to establish the client's dreams, desires, and the client's needs, and to be able to take those together with the client and refine, establish priorities, and then generate a logical and clear set of plans that a builder can easily take and build a quality project. To illustrate the dynamics of this working relationship, I'd like to use a pen. We know that in order to draw, we need to have our mind connected to the writing implement. If you'd think of the writing implement as the designer, he definitely can't be the person that is making up the decisions as to what the client wants. The client's thoughts need to be clearly transmitted to the designer or the pen. Once the pen gets the information, then it needs to put it down on paper in a manner that the builder then is able to come in and understand the client's needs, understand the placement of walls, so that the project can then get built in a successful manner.
Our home was rather small. It was built in the 1850s. All the rooms are very small, and we felt we needed more space for entertaining, room for relaxing. So that was our main goal.
Originally, I wanted, more space here for the house and also studio space. So we had kind of knocked around different ideas. We might combine those two needs, but ended up deciding that a separate area for a studio would be better. We had been thinking about it for years, and from time to time I'd be doing sketches and so on. So when we met with you initially, I guess I had some of those ready, in addition to just trying to verbally explain what we had in mind and what we needed. And then of course at that point you came up with some rough sketches, and then based on those you came up with more refined sketches.
I didn't even know at first where the addition would be placed in the house. I didn't know whether it should go off the kitchen in that direction or off the kitchen in this direction. So having your ideas helped me to focus a lot.
It's going to be a trade-off. We will enlarge the kitchen and just redecorate the bathroom, or do the bathroom and not enlarge the kitchen. So we're still
Working that issue out.
Yeah, and how I work it out in my mind, just watching what goes on around the house. What do we need? Do we need more space in the kitchen, or do we need more space for the bathroom? Do we really need another shower?
It was modular, and where the stairs are over there was where the front door was. And it was just a very small living room and kitchen and dinette. Well, we used as much as we could from the original house. What was on the original house, the front door that was on there, we have used again on our front door. So we have the original front door. And the modular home had 2 windows in the front, and we took those 2 windows and used them in the dining room, where we pushed out for the dining room, and we used the same windows there. So we didn't have to purchase windows for there and the door.
We did a little redesigning of the home. Initially we had a 3-car garage above ground. We decided, because it was a substantial cost saving, to eliminate that and put the garage into the basement. The other thing that we did as far as the site
we elected to clear our own trees.
When you did the painting, how much work, did that take you a lot of time? Was that a major investment on your own part?
Yes, it was.
Time-wise, yeah. A lot of weekends.
We've been doing painting and staging since the beginning of December on weekends. So it's
So it's been about 2 months?
been about 2 months of weekends.
Do you feel like it's been a worthy investment? Have you made, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, because we saved a substantial amount of money. We had some fun.
Memories.
Memories.
What's needed on any plan is detail, and by detail I mean elevations, window callouts, door callouts, as much as can be put into a print by an architect or designer to minimize any chance of mistakes. Here you have a column called out, but we have no designation as to what type of column it really is. Like I see, this is the garage area, and this column is the only column that can be put in because it sits right between the two bays. So what this beam is, I have no idea. There's just too many variables and too many doors left open on a print like this to say that you know, you're going to have competitive bidding. The bids cannot be. No two contractors are going to look at this and see the same thing. And what happens now is it's going to take a lot of my time to go back to either the architect and the homeowner. I'm going to spend probably an extra 20 to 30 hours just to figure out what he really wants here. And you're looking at a house that's going to run in the price range of $250,000. So, I mean, $250,000, if you can't have a decent set of blueprints, there's something wrong.
An engineer is part of a design team that you're going to need to build your house. The engineer provides the information required to make sure that the members are strong enough to support the loads that it's going to see. These are final details for a foundation drawing, and you'll notice some very unique things now. You see there's steel in the wall, there's steel in the footer. That's what your engineer provides you. He tells you what spacing the steel is going to be required for, and that's all determined by the soil conditions that are around the place where you're going to be building. If required by the client or requested by the client, the engineer can remain on the project all through the building of the house, ensuring that the proper materials are used in the construction of the house.
A line item estimate is different than your typical lump sum estimate, which most builders use. A line item estimate actually takes every single item that's going in the home or each phase and breaks it down for the customer, so the customer knows what each item is going to cost. A good way of using a line item is to be able to monitor the construction, how it's going financially, potential overruns, potential savings. Line item is also very good to use when you have allowance items, when you're not sure what the customer has not made their mind up as to what they're going to put into a house. You can budget a particular line item such as cabinetry, windows, doors, trim, tile, carpeting. You can put allowances in your line item, and then when there's a change or an item is actually picked out, it only affects that line item.
I think it's really important that when you're selecting a builder, that you look at the quality of work that they do, because in the short run, you might pay less money up front, but in the long run, I think it costs you more if you have inadequate construction. We looked at some homes, open houses, and found out who the builders were and checked out the work. We talked to a lot of other people that we knew that had built homes and asked them what their experiences had been with their builder. And then we actually started getting bids.
I would recommend that that you know the person you choose, or at least have spoken to someone else who has had this person in their home for many months, and you know what kind of a personality they have. It can be difficult if the person is noisier and you're quieter, or the person isn't quite as neat as you are and you are very neat, or are they going to be protecting your home, your furniture, Will plastic be put up? There are some builders that take that all for granted and they do it and they're very careful and meticulous, and others just aren't as meticulous.
Everybody has different expectations, and a builder's personality or way of working might be fine with one person or couple or party, and with another it can be just an ongoing, I won't say nightmare, but just an ongoing conflict or problem. It's just a natural thing that boils down to personality or what one person finds normal and another person finds unacceptable.
I think our first job was just roofing and a little bit of siding or whatever. And we were impressed with how, the quality of workmanship. When he was finished, the job was completely cleaned up. The shrubs were put back. To the point, one small detail that comes to mind that made us calm back was, apparently you planted marigolds that year. And he trampled on a few of the marigolds. He came back the following week, unbeknownst to us, and planted new marigolds to replace the ones that he destroyed during the roof. So that was he immediately convinced us that this was the guy who was going to help us do this house. And year after year, we've called him back for various projects.
One of the most important things that we find are daily communications with the homeowner. As we're building the home, we communicate with people, and we stress that there's nothing that can't be changed. If you're unhappy with the window in this location, it can be moved. And now is the time to do it, rather than wait until after the home is completed.
When the economy's tough, people think that they can take one phase, like electrical, and they let their brother-in-law do it, and they're going to save a bundle. But the brother-in-law gets on the job with us, and we're professionals working with the plumber, but then the electrician was the brother-in-law. It doesn't really, he doesn't do it every day for a living. He's doing it on weekends and nights, and it doesn't work as well as if we were to sub it all out, and we really work well together. And when we get those guys lined up, we can go through a job smoothly and be really accurate on the contract.
Well, 5-draw policy is basically what most lending institutes use. Most builders will require a down payment upon signing, and that down payment varies from builder to builder. Some builders use a straight, simple fee, like a $5,000 fee. Some use a 5% of the job, some as high as 10% of the job. The way a bank releases money is based on performance. A 5-draw system is generally when the foundation is complete, 20% of the total contract price is released to the contractor. When the rough framing, the roofing, and the windows are complete, 25% of the complete contract is released to the contractor. When the interior rough framing, mechanical, plumbing, rough heating, insulation is complete, an additional 20% is released. When the interior is completed, as far as sheetrock, trim, all your interior finishes, another 20% is released, and then upon final completion and occupancy permit, the balance is released, plus all additional funds for extras along the way.
As we near the end of the job, we start making a list of things, small things that we have to finish. The gutters, the downspouts, things that have to be finished. So we make a punch list and we attack this punch list, and as a homeowner comes to us, we add things to the punch list. And we don't leave that job until that punch list is complete and the homeowner is happy.
And that's the design process. I'd like you to remember 3 things. Firstly, remember that you're the boss. The architect, the designer, the builder, they work for you. Make sure that they listen to what your needs are. Secondly, remember that this is not a quick process. This will take you a solid amount of time. And thirdly, it's going to take you a lot of work. Your concentration is going to be needed at every step to make sure that things are following along in the way you desire it. But the good news of the entire thing is that the ultimate satisfaction of having a building that's tailored to your exact needs is worth it.